The analysis of the notes with Lucas and Clara from El Comercio from Ecuador.
Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we are doing a deep dive into sources covering something, well, pretty bizarre and maybe revolutionary. It's this highly controversial idea of cockroach milk as a superfood.
Yeah, it sounds like something out of a movie, but it's actual biology. Our mission here is really to cut through the shock value and understand the real nutritional science behind it.
And also look at the huge roadblocks, right? Ethical ones, practical ones, the stuff stopping it from actually hitting shelves.
Exactly. The sources we looked at really highlight this tension. Incredible nutrition claims on one side, and on the other, this incredibly complex, frankly difficult extraction process. Plus, the whole regulatory side, especially how cautious the EU is being.
So first things first, what is this milk? Because it's not like, milking a cow.
Not at all. It's not even really a liquid in the usual sense. It comes from one specific species, the Pacific beetle cockroach, Diploptera punctata. They're viviparous.
Viviparous, meaning they give live birth, which is pretty rare for cockroaches, isn't it?
That's right. And what the mother produces isn't milk like we think of it, but these dense protein crystals. Think of it as packed lunch for the embryos inside her.
Okay, protein crystals. And this is where the science gets really interesting based on the sources. Why the fuss?
Well, studies, particularly some out of India, showed these crystals pack up to 3 times more energy than, say, buffalo milk or cow's milk. It's incredibly potent stuff.
3 times the energy. Wow. What's actually in it that makes it so powerful?
It's just dense. You've got high levels of protein, obviously, but also essential fatty acids, linoleic, oleic acids, and amino acids that release energy slowly. So sustained energy.
And the protein numbers themselves are pretty staggering compared to what we're used to. Cow milk is what, about 3.5% protein?
Yeah, around there. These crystals, the sources mentioned, figures up to 45% protein.
45%. That's a huge difference.
It really is. It sort of shifts it from just a food supplement to potentially a complete nutritional source. You can see why people are interested, maybe for malnutrition or even for lactose intolerant folks, since it's not from a mammal.
Okay, but then comes the big but. The production. How on earth do you get these crystals out? This seems like the major hurdle.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
Because the crystals are inside the female cockroach, you have to, sacrifice them.
Yeah.
At a very specific point in their development cycle, too.
Sacrifice them. How many are we talking about?
The numbers are pretty daunting. To get just 100 milliliters, that's less than half a cup, you'd need to process around 1,000 cockroaches.
1,000 for that tiny amount. Okay, that doesn't sound sustainable or scalable at all. It sounds ethically complicated, to say the least.
Immensely complicated, yeah. So obviously that's not a viable path for mass production.
So what's the workaround researchers are looking at? Surely they're not planning mass cockroach farms for this.
No, the focus is shifting towards lab synthesis. The idea is to isolate the specific gene in the cockroach that's responsible for producing this protein crystal.
Ah, okay. So find the gene.
Find the gene, replicate it, and then basically get microorganisms, maybe yeast or bacteria, in big tanks to produce the protein for us. Some scientists in Iowa were looking into this, using these microbiologic tanks.
But grow it in a lab, essentially. Avoids the whole insect farming and sacrifice issue.
Exactly. Solves the ethical and the sheer practical problems of extraction.
But even if you make it in a lab, it's still, derived from a cockroach protein sequence. What about getting people to accept it and getting regulators on board?
That's the next massive hurdle. Yeah. You've got this weird situation where global bodies like the FAO are actually pushing for more insect consumption generally for sustainability reasons.
Right, to ease pressure on traditional farming.
But then you look at specific regulations, like in the EU, and this cockroach milk, synthesized or not, hasn't been authorized. It's considered a novel food, and they say there just isn't enough safety data yet.
And then there's just the ick factor, isn't there? Even synthesized, the origin is hard for many people, especially in Western cultures, to get past.
Definitely. That cultural rejection of insects as food is probably the biggest long-term barrier. Even beyond the technical and regulatory stuff, is a fascinating clash. Huge biological potential meets very real human barriers.
So it leaves us with a kind of provocative thought, really. Let's say science nails it. They synthesize the super protein perfectly in a lab. No bugs harmed, no ick factor from eating insects directly.
Yeah.
Does that synthetic product still hold the same promise for, like, genuine sustainability? Or does the sheer cost and complexity of synthesizing these future superfoods become the new bottleneck, maybe overshadowing the ethical stuff we thought we'd solved?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. Where do the true limits lie as we engineer future foods? Is it ethics, technology, cost, or just accept?
Definitely something for you to think about. If you found this deep dive useful and maybe a little weird, please do subscribe and maybe share it with someone else you think might find it interesting. We really appreciate your support.
Comment, subscribe and share. More information at www.commerce.com.